Thanks, Mobeen.
Thank you so much. So, how AI can fuel growth across megatrends. Henry Ford, one of the pioneers of the automotive industry, he once said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. And that quote to me really embodies the essence of innovation. There are these smart people out there who innovate, and they give people what they didn't know they needed, but once they have it, they can't live without it. And when you start putting your money behind those sorts of world-changing innovations, that's what thematic investing is all about, which is what I'm here to talk about. And certainly this year, it seems like AI is that groundbreaking innovation that the world didn't know it needed, and now that it has it, it can't live without it. So in this presentation, I'll give you a few examples of the sorts of things that AI will change. At WisdomTree, we don't just see AI as a megatrend in itself. We see AI as a foundational technology that will accelerate growth across megatrends. So a few examples to touch on there. Starting with, there we go. Starting with the cloud software. So we've heard that generative AI has been all the rage this year. And generative AI has been the rage because it's touched the masses. It's something that all of us have been able to interact with and use and hear about. Now, cloud software, the ChatGPT, which stormed the masses, of course, is a cloud-based application. We can use it on our mobile phones or our laptops. It sits on the cloud. It's not installed on our devices. And cloud-based applications are going to benefit from this AI revolution in the first instance. Now, this is, of course, a presentation about investing, and we're talking about the future. So, of course, I'm going to show you an exponential chart, as it shows on the screen. Now, this one is coming from Bloomberg Intelligence, and what they're saying is that generative AI software spending is going to increase by a multiple of 280 in the coming decade. So going from around 1 billion USD in 2022, it's going to go all the way up to 280 billion by 2032. In terms of percentages, 12% of all software will have generative AI capabilities, up from practically zero last year. If you ask me, I think that's conservative. I think it will be a lot more than 12%. Why? Because just think, a non-technical person like me who can't code to save his life, generative AI, what it gives me is the ability to speak to a computer in plain English and do what a programmer would have done using very sophisticated programming languages. In the future, more people will demand that capability from their software. So it'll probably be a lot higher than 12%. So we're going into the cloud and we're using all these applications, but not all of us are law-abiding citizens and operate within the bounds of the law and ethics. Some of us are naughty, and what they do is they exploit vulnerabilities in the cloud to attack their victims, cybersecurity. So this report, which comes from CrowdStrike, one of the prominent cybersecurity firms, gives a few stats that I would like to highlight. 288% increase in 2022 in cloud-conscious threat actors. Very sophisticated term. Of course, it's a report that comes from a cybersecurity firm. But basically, it's saying a lot of attackers are attacking via the cloud. And there's been a strong increase in that trend in recent years. 71% of the attacks were malware-free. Now, malware attacks are those sorts of things which we are trained to avoid. We're trained to look out for those fishy emails, those dodgy emails with those funny sender addresses and subject lines. But 71% of the attacks were malware-free because attackers have found more sophisticated ways of attacking their victims. And every time they attack, on average, it costs the organization 4.91 million USD. So you don't want to be that person who is causing your organization that sort of a loss. So we all need to educate ourselves on strengthening our defenses as well. So if the attackers are using AI, the defense has to use AI as well. Luckily, and this is the only perhaps positive number on the slide, is more than 90% of security professionals believe that AI will have a role to play in the sort of cyber attacks they will be exposed to. Although you might think, what is the remaining 10% thinking about, given where we are today? So we've talked about cloud, we've talked about cybersecurity. Let's turn our attention to healthcare. It's another frontier where AI has been operating for quite some time. It's not a new relationship, AI and healthcare. AI lends itself very well to healthcare because in the realm of healthcare, there's a lot of data. Just think about DNA. DNA is the best store of data that we know of. It's at least 1,000 times better than the best solid-state hard disk that you can get in the world. So there's a lot of data to be analyzed, and wherever there's data, there's use of AI that can be made. So this slide is showing that over the last 5 to 6 years, there's been a steady increase in private investment in AI. And in terms of percentages as well, we see that healthcare is at or around 10% or more in terms of total private investment in AI. So healthcare is a pretty important space for AI investment. And one example where AI could significantly improve the return on investment is drug discovery. Now, most drugs that we consume tend to go through a trial process, and of course, trials can take 10 to 15 years before a drug is approved, and every drug can take 1 to 2 billion USD in the development process. Now, after all of that investment in time and money, only 1.8% of the drugs actually make it through. So the success rate from preclinical trial stage is just 1.8%. What if you could improve the odds? Well, you could improve the odds because you can improve the selection of your bets at each stage of that clinical trial. So you see those percentages at each stage. There's this filtering process that takes place today, and you see that's why we end up with just a handful of winners at the end. But AI, what it can do is it can analyze data and pick winners a lot better than human beings. And that's where it'll help us in the drug discovery world. In the energy transition, electric vehicles, can AI turn electric vehicles into money-making machines? I would certainly hope that it does. How? Most of us, if we drive a car for our personal needs, we tend to only be on the roads maybe 4% of the time of the car's life. Most studies tend to indicate towards those sorts of numbers. 95 to 96% of the time, the car is just sitting parked in your driveway or your garage, if not more. Now, when it comes to electric vehicles, we know that the most important component, or the most valuable component in an electric vehicle is the battery. Now, if you're paying for a battery and only exploiting its value 4% of the time, and the rest of the time it's just sitting there, that's not very efficient use of your money. What if you could generate value from the battery 100% of the time that you own that battery? And you can do that with vehicle-to-grid technology. The idea is that the battery could power the lights in your home, or you could actually sell electricity back to the grid when the grid is experiencing a heavy load. So you charge at a lower tariff at night, and you give back to the grid at a higher tariff during the day, during peak hours, and that's how you generate money from your battery, and your car is just standing there in your garage. Of course, you don't want to be sitting there doing those calculations yourself and plugging and unplugging your car and thinking, okay, now I want to charge, now I want to uncharge and give back to the grid. AI will help us do those things automatically. In recycling, we have other very interesting examples. Now, in the world of recycling, a human being can normally sort 200 items on a recycling facility per hour. An AI robot, a robot that is trained using AI, can actually do 4,000 picks in an hour. So compared to 200, we've gone to 4,000 in an hour because the AI-trained robot is able to better distinguish between different types of waste because it's been trained using a lot of data. And of course, it's a robot, so maybe it's quicker as well, and it's not subject to the same health hazards as a human being is. Now, I know what you're thinking. Someone's going to lose their job on the recycling facility. But of course they are. That's the nature of technology. And technology has always forced people to upskill, to move on, to do other things. When the printing press was invented, people lost their jobs. When the calculator was invented, people lost their jobs. When the internet came, the computer, all of these things force people to learn new skills and adapt, evolve, and move on. And that is what AI is going to do as well. And of course, if you ask PwC, they say AI will contribute 15.7 trillion USD to the global economy by 2030. I find that fascinating how consultants can come up with such precise numbers. But whether it's 10 trillion or 15 trillion or 100 trillion, if indeed AI is as groundbreaking or fundamental as the internet was in changing the way we live and engage with technology, then who knows what that number will actually look like in the years to come. But of course, if as investors you think this creates very exciting opportunities, there are ways to access this mega trend. And of course, if you are interested, please do come to us and talk to us. We are Wisdom Tree, and we would love to talk to you about artificial intelligence. Thank you very much.